Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on media freedom in the Western Balkans, challenges and opportunities in the framework of EU accession. My name is Serena Epis, and I'm a researcher at Osservatorio Balcani Caucaso Transeuropa. I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar and thank you for joining us. I also want to introduce and thank our guest speakers. With us today, we have Mrs. Maja Smrkelj, Policy Officer from the Political Desk Serbia of the DG NEAR of the European Commission. Thank you very much for joining. We also have Mrs. Cristina Caputo, Deputy Director of the Adriatic and Balkans Unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy. And then we have our project partners from SAIDEF, Bleriana Bino, Executive Directive from Albania, and Tamara Filipovic, Secretary General of the Independent Journalists Association from Serbia. Thank you very much to all our guests. And of course, last but not least, my colleague, Massimo Moratti, Senior Researcher and Collaborator of Osservatorio Balcani Caucaso Transeuropa. Before starting our discussion, I wanted to say a few words about this event and the project that it is part of. So this webinar is part of the Media Freedom Rapid Response, which is a project co-funded by the European Union that tracks, monitors, and reacts to press freedom violation across EU member states and also candidate countries. It does so by offering different kinds of supports to journalists in need and media professionals in need, and also by informing and providing awareness raising to the public on media-related issues. This webinar also draws on the research activities and on our advocacy activity that OBCT, together with SAIDEF and NUNS, carried out throughout this year as part of the ATLIB project, which is a project on transnational advocacy for freedom of information in the Western Balkans that is supported by the Italian Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So as we know, this year, the European Commission published for the first year the Rule of Law report, also for some candidate countries from the Western Balkans, including Serbia and Albania. So as part of our research effort, OBCT, together with SAIDEF and NUNS, this summer published 2 shadow reports mirroring the report by the European Commission to address some challenges connected to media freedom in the 2 candidate countries and bring these challenges and these crucial issues to the attention of the European Commission, also in light of another very important report that is about to be published, I think, and that is the progress report. So today, this webinar is the occasion to present the key findings of our shadow reports and to present the updating findings, because of course, since last summer, things have happened, things have evolved. So we do have some developments that our partners will present us, and also to discuss them together and to bring them to the attention of decision makers and also to the attention of the general public. Before giving the floor to our guests, I would just remind the participants that if you do have any questions, you can write them in the Q&A session, in the Q&A chat, and I will read them and address them to our speakers. So I will start straight away, actually, giving the floor to Mrs. Caputo, that maybe can present the importance of supporting media freedom in candidate countries and also the commitment of the Italian Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in this sense. Many thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Serena, for these introduction words. Can you hear me? Yes, perfect. First of all, I would like to welcome all the participants to this webinar, and I would like really to thank the Osservatorio Balcani Caucaso Transeuropa for organizing this webinar in the framework of the ATLIB project, and of course the 2 partners of the project, the Independent Journalists Association of Serbia and the Center Science and Innovation for Development in Albania. Of course, freedom, independence, and the pluralism of media are prerequisites for good health of European democracies. Are common challenges across EU member states and candidate countries, especially in a digital transformation era as the one we are living in. It's easy to demonstrate how the flow of information could be manipulated and the power of media abused. And those are challenges that are common to all of us. No one is excluded. Of course, media freedom and pluralism are guaranteed, of course, the full deployment of some of the rights that cannot be renounced in a democracy. The right of freedom of expression and information. It's a right for all the citizens, and it is everyone's duty to demand it. That is why the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs is trying to this kind of project that we are financing to work shoulder by shoulder with our Western Balkan countries and partners in order to progress together in improving and strengthening the independent media in the Balkans, with the main objective to accelerate the process of integration in the European Union family. This is the main objective, this is our common objective, and we are determined as Italy to go through this goal, and we will never stop till we will get to this accession. And that's why we are determined to also give important resources to our financial budget in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to projects that are intended really to strengthening and to foster reforms and regional cooperation in the Western Balkans. This project is one of the 26 project in 2023 that the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs decided to finance. There are many others related to different areas of activities from security, terrorism, fight against corruption, electoral system. But the idea is to consolidate democratic institutions and to support, of course, national and regional cooperation. The ATLIB project that we financed in Bando Balkani 2023 contribute to this main goal through the effective advocacy to protect media freedom. Of course, we would like to contribute in a way to accelerate the integration process of Serbia and Albania. And of course, we will be very happy if in the upcoming progress report that the Commission is finalized in those weeks, and that will be published in the coming weeks, we could see at least one step forward in these areas for the two candidate countries. Reading the report of the Commission in 2023, there are marks of improvement, if I may say. So we hope really that through this project, working together, we can see some improvement. Again, starting to my previous words, that is a common challenge to which everyone is facing, and we need to work together, institutions, civil societies, associations, in order to improve something that is the right of our citizen, to have free and independent media for strong democracies. Our aspiration is really to contribute in a small term to improve those areas for the two candidate countries, And we will really look forward to hearing from you the experience of this project in order to see also from the Commission point of view if it's something that can help improving those areas in the candidate countries in order to see the possibility to enlarge to other countries, candidate countries, same project like this one. So I wish all the best for this today webinar, and of course we will remaining in listening mode to listen really from you, your expectation and your feedback from the project. Thank you very much, Serena.
Many thanks, Mrs. Caputo, for this introduction, and also for stressing a key point that really inspired our project, that is the fact that media freedom challenges, violations to media freedom are really a common issue, a common challenge that EU member states and also candidate countries has to face, and the fact that we need a strong collaboration among stakeholders, not only at the European level, but also at the larger, in a way, regional level with Western Balkan counterparts is really important, and is something that actually inspired and was the spirit of this project. Thank you also for putting this issue in the general framework, in the broader framework of EU accession, because of course, this is the aim, this is what we are looking at. So in a broader perspective, EU accession. And this is why I would like to leave the floor to Mrs. Merkel to introduce in a way how the European integration process can contribute to the promotion of media freedom in candidate countries. What is the assessment, the expectation also from the European Commission side? Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to all. It's a really great pleasure to speak for the European Commission at today's webinar on issues that are not only key aspects of the EU accession process, but are also very close to my heart personally. I apologize for my very broken voice, as you can see, but I fell sick over the weekend and I didn't want to cancel my participation, so I hope I'll make it to the end of my intervention. I wanted to start briefly with a short general introduction of EU accession process to the Western Balkans and the importance of media freedom in the context of EU accession. Then I would say a couple of words on how the European Commission sees the situation in the two countries that are in the focus of today's webinar. And then also say a couple of words about the support we are providing to the countries and media organizations in the region to improve this situation, and also about the new legal framework at the level of EU acquis to protect media pluralism and independence in the EU. And before I start, I would also like to say that, of course, on our side, we value very much also the contributions of member states in this area, and it's very much appreciated that also a great number of member states, and including Italy, are investing their own financial assistance into projects like this project. So this is, of course, very important. And it's also a clear indicator of the importance, not just the European Commission, but also member states attached to media freedom and freedom of expression in the region. So maybe a couple of words on the enlargement and accession process. So as you know, after a series of successive accessions of new member states and the EU growing from 6 to now 27 member states, it has become even more clear in the current geopolitical context that the enlargement policy represents more than ever a clear and necessary geostrategic investment in our own long-term peace, stability, security, and prosperity. Today, we speak of a new moment in the enlargement policy, and we witness an enhanced political attention and support by member states to bring the now already 10 enlargement partners closer to the EU and integrate them into the European Union. However, as such, enlargement process remains merit-based and conditioned on candidate countries following the necessary and fulfilling the necessary conditions spelled out in the so-called Copenhagen criteria. freedom of expression and media freedom as one of the essential foundations of democratic society, and as such, one of the European Union's fundamental values, are therefore a crucial element of EU accession process, and also for those countries that are negotiating, for instance, like Serbia, and we hope that also Albania will soon open Cluster 1, also an important interim benchmark to be fulfilled under Chapter 23 of the negotiations. They are a key indicator of countries' readiness to become a part of the EU. This implies a commitment to democracy, good governance, and political accountability. As public watchdogs, journalists need an enabling environment which allows them to work in safety and security, and this also implies economic security, and without fear of harassment, political pressure, censorship, or prosecution. At the same time, it's also important that media outlets and journalists act in accordance with the highest professional and ethical standards, and that they are well equipped and resilient to tackle today's challenges of widespread disinformation and information manipulation. All these issues are therefore closely monitored by the European Commission in the context of EU accession process. And this is why the country reports of the so-called enlargement package dedicate a particular attention to monitoring the state of freedom of expression, media freedom, and pluralism of media. And as of this year, in line with the objective to increase involvement of prospective member states in EU processes, these issues are also tackled, as you already mentioned, and reported also in the European Commission's rule of law reports, into which both Albania and Serbia have been included amongst the first 4 candidate countries which are most advanced in the accession process. And when it comes to these 2 countries, but also the Western Balkans region in general, both our enlargement package reports and the rule of law reports show that countries still need to address some key challenges in this area. So, as you know, our enlargement package is currently under preparation, and of course, I'm not able and I'm not in a position to disclose the content of this year's enlargement report. But I think overall, you will not be surprised. And I think in terms of the challenges that we clearly see, this range from legal framework to those hampering media independence, intersection of business and political interests, lack of transparency of sources of finance, concentration of media ownership, intimidation, and precarious working conditions of journalists, which continue to hamper media independence, pluralism, and quality of journalism. The atmosphere of verbal and physical attacks, smear campaigns, and intimidation lawsuits are equally present across the region. And while we see that more attention has been given to these issues by the authorities, the effective judicial follow-up of cases of attacks against journalists is still not always ensured. Professionalism and independence of public broadcaster, media regulators, and effective self-regulation also still need to improve, as do journalists' working conditions. On our side, we have been providing and will continue to provide substantial support to strengthening media pluralism, quality journalism, and freedom of expression, including countering disinformation and misinformation in the whole region. This has, for instance, included grants to media and media organizations with support for including with support for operational costs as well as production. Under the civil society facility and media program that are currently in place, we are also supporting innovative media initiatives and civic actors and try to cover for emergency and non-standard needs. And we have also prioritized these issues in our discussions with the countries on their reform agendas that I'm sure you have heard of in between, and that they have been developed under the Reform and Growth Facility, which is part of our new growth plan for the Western Balkans. Funding from this facility which will amount in the total to 6 billion in loans and grants for the whole region, will be conditional on delivery on mutually agreed reform agendas. Both Albania and Serbia have chosen to include issues related to media freedom in their reform agendas. This is an important signal of their commitment to improving the situation in this area. And on our side, the Commission will need to very carefully assess that the conditions for the payments will truly be met. This should provide for an additional incentive for the two countries to deliver on the important issues in this area. And beyond this extensive assistance that we are providing, we have also been at EU level prioritizing media freedom and the current challenges we are facing at EU and global level in our legislative agenda. This spring, the European Media Act regulation has entered into force, which will be applicable across the EU as of next year. This regulation includes, among others, safeguards against political interference in editorial decisions and against surveillance, putting focus on the independence and stable funding of public media broadcaster, as well as on the transparency of media ownership and allocation of state advertising. It also sets out measures to protect editorial independence. As candidate countries for EU accession, both Albania and Serbia will of course need to align with the EU Media Freedom Act before their accession. And as I mentioned already before, as this is clearly a very important priority in the EU accession process, we will be on our side encouraging both countries to do this rather sooner than later. So I will stop here to allow more time for the discussion, but also to spare you from my rusty voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Zmirkovic, for your introduction, for these remarks. Despite the rusty voice, it worked perfectly. And actually, thank you for already pointing out and mentioning some of the key challenges that I guess my colleagues Tamara and Leriana will present now connected to media freedom. You talked about media ownership, pressure from political forces, economic insecurities, SLAPPs, strategic lawsuits against public participation. So it was good to have this kind of general framework where we put ourselves. And also let me thank you once again for joining us, because I think that it's really important to have these kind of occasions, kind of meetings where we can actually talk to decision makers. So also thank again to Mrs. Caputo, because these kind of moments where civil society, decision makers and institutions can actually meet and discuss these very crucial issues connected to enlargement, but also to the democratic stability of the entire European Union member states as well is really important, is really crucial. I will now leave the floor to my colleagues, Tamara and Leriana, to present the results of our research work of the shadow reports, pointing out the updates, so what has been happening from this summer until now, and also what are the key challenges that should be prioritized in the approach also in regards to, with regards to European accession. So maybe Leriana, you can start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. And also I would like to express on behalf of SciDev our pleasure of collaborating with OBTC and also with NUNS to develop this shadow report, but also to strengthen further our advocacy actions regarding media freedom and safety of journalists in Albania. We really appreciate the support at the regional level from the Safe Journalists Network, but also the European level from OBTC and also the Media Freedom Rapid Response that has proven really helpful when we try to raise alert and advocate for the safety of journalists and media freedom. I would like to start by saying that just this morning I was made aware of a coordinated attack against our organization and myself, and also against OBTC, precisely referring to the publication of this report. So the situation, you can imagine, is not safe not only for journalists or independent professional journalists, but also under attack come think tank, independent organization, watchdog organization that try to raise the voice through evidences, through research, through advocacy regarding these issues. Now, moving back to media, as it was mentioned already by the previous speakers, so the biggest challenges in Albania remain structural in nature, basically in an ecosystem that is characterized by a symbiotic relationship between powerful economic, political vested interest and the media, but also in sometimes including organized crime as well. The concentration of media ownership is another factor that influences the level of media freedom, freedom of expression, but also the quality of information and the information integrity that the citizens get. In the recent years, and also in the time frame of this report, the quality of media content unfortunately has deteriorated, and we have seen increase of self-censorship, particularly of independent, professional, investigative journalists. And as I mentioned before, a shrinking space for actually doing independent critical journalism, but also for watchdog organization, activists, and think tankers. Concerning for Albania is the practice of using media outlets as tools, as instruments to blackmail various public figures, politicians, businesses, or individuals, or even civil society organizations. Regarding the attacks on journalists, only in 2023, the Safe Journalist Network recorded 24 cases, but in 2024, we see an increase of cases. We have more than 20 cases from January till September 2024. And the majority of the cases refer to verbal attacks, pressure and threats from politicians, both from the government, but also from the opposition as well, and other political figures, but also an increase in cyber threats and digital attacks on media platforms or individual journalists. Another major concern for Albania is the working conditions and labor rights of journalists. The situation has not improved in the recent months, so we have received information from journalists in two main audiovisual media that their social security has not been paid for 2 years. Journalists continue to work with formal contracts and that the provisions in the contracts are not actually implemented. They are paid both minimum salary in the bank and the rest is paid to them in cash. So the lack of economic security and economic social welfare in the workplace definitely affects their ability then to produce quality journalism or to do independent professional journalism. The report also highlights access to information as an issue, although the law has been changed and it was adapted and slightly improved last year. In practice, still journalists, but also citizens and civil society organizations face challenges when they try to access or to obtain information from public institutions. So the culture of secrecy still is prevalent, and institutions try to use every single administrative or legal loophole not to provide the information, particularly when it is regarding public procurement contracts or any aspects that might involve institutions in aspect of alleged corruption or wrongdoing. When it comes to the mechanism for the protection of journalists, of course, the Constitution guarantees the freedom of expression, and we also have a legal basis for safety of journalists, but there are discrepancies, how to say, from what is written in paper with how this is done in practice. Defamation is still a criminal controversy in Albania, although the prison sentence was removed in 2012. The fines are still very high, and in the process of EU integration and using the momentum of EU accession negotiations, we, together with other organizations, are advocating for the complete decriminalization of defamation and transposing or approximating the anti-SLAPP directive so as to reduce the number of lawsuits against journalists, but also against activists or civil society organizations. Our data shows that in 2024, there was an increase in lawsuits against journalists. Although we don't have a legal definition for SLAPP, we can assume that the majority of them are basically SLAPP. In the coming week, we will have also a roundtable presenting a study on SLAPPs in Albania and presenting the steps and the legal changes that Albanian institutions need to make in order to approximate the anti-SLAPP directive. Regarding the protection mechanisms, Albania does not have dedicated protocols for investigating attacks against journalists, and yet it does not have specific contact points at the police or prosecution in this regard. But as part of the European accession process and the rule of law roadmap, we have managed to put forward this recommendation. It has been accepted. So in the coming years, the institutions have committed to introduce the specific contact points in the police and in the prosecution for cases of attacks against journalists, but also to develop specific protocols on how to investigate with priority these cases. Journalists face when they are attacked, and now I can understand this very well considering the attack today on us as well. There is no free legal aid for journalists when they are attacked. There are some organizations that provide this based on project, but according to the law, journalists do not fall part in the category that obtain free legal aid from the state. There are limited access to protection mechanism. As I said, for us, the support of the Safe Journalist Network in the Western Balkans and the Media Freedom Rapid Response of the Council of Europe is the only, how to say, safety net. Journalists also fear retaliation when they try to react against these attacks, and in some cases they don't even trust institutions. So even when there are physical attacks or actual attacks against journalists or their family members, they don't take it up to the institutions because they do not feel secure and they don't trust the system. Some specific challenges pertain particularly to women journalists and to the digital smear campaigns against them. And in 2023 and 2024, we have seen several of these attacking particularly women journalists that are very vocal also in the public sphere. In 2023, the Albanian media regulatory adopted, transposed part of the regulation of EU regarding the directive on audiovisual media, and particularly regarding the sexism in the media, and regulation of content, harmful content on large video sharing platform. However, we are hoping that with the accession process, the Albanian institution will work more and will make their plans more transparent and ensure public consultation when it comes to approximating legislation with the Media Freedom Act and the Digital Service Act and other relevant legislations. So as I mentioned, the EU is providing EU accession process is providing momentum for us as well as media freedom organization, but also for the journalistic community and civil society in general to push for reforms and strategic interventions in media freedom and ensuring freedom of expression and safety of journalists. The publication of and the approval of the rule of law roadmap was the first step. The second one is just now the Parliament approved the roadmap for the functioning of democratic institution, also as part of the opening of the negotiation for Cluster 1. They all have specific provisions for legal changes or other changes that are necessary as strategic interventions for improving media freedom and safety of journalists. We are monitoring the situation very closely. We are trying to galvanize also the feedback, perspective, needs of the community and transfer them also to the institutions. And we hope that the government will start very soon what they have pledged to do, a structural dialogue with civil society, media community, media freedom organization, independent institutions regarding freedom of expression, media freedom and safety of journalists. And we have urged the institution to ensure full transparency of these actions and as well ensure inclusivity in this process. The report also has specific recommendations. They are quite detailed and I would not like to take much time. They are also available online. Also the safe The report to the indicators on the media freedom from the Safe Journalist Network will be published soon as well. And they all, in a sense, join forces to lobby and to advocate for an enabling environment for media freedom and safety of journalists. I'm happy to respond to any question or comments afterwards. And thank you again for today, but also for the cooperation more broadly.
Thank you very much, Valeriana, for this really insightful description of the Albanian media landscape. And also thank you very much for providing concrete and real examples of how working with European instruments or exploiting this kind of European routes for cooperation can actually have an impact, for example, on the national level, in adopting, I don't know, action plans, roadmaps, as you mentioned, the rule of law roadmap. So thank you for providing really these kind of concrete results of what exploiting these kind of European instruments, mechanisms, and ways for cooperation really works and can actually have an impact. I will leave the floor now to Tamara, kindly asking her to give an also on the Serbian context, to actually see if we have issues in common, what are the differences and also the similarities, I guess. Thanks.
Hello from my side. My name is Tamara Filipovic and I'm Secretary General Independent Journalist Association of Serbia, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm glad that I hear some faces here who are very prone to help us on this way to EU accession process. So I will just highlight some very important topics, not go through the whole report, and some updates regarding the new activities in our countries. So I will begin with the regulatory body for electronic media. As some of you know, Serbia adopted 2 media laws on 3rd of November 2023. We didn't do so much regarding the implementation of these laws, especially, for example, regarding the regulatory body for electronic media, which is emphasized by the European progress reports also as one of the very important bodies which should take the role and act according to the laws. So what happened from this adoption of these new laws? Regulatory body just elected the director, that is the new position within this institution, and they did it very promptly right after the adoption of the laws. What they did also to implement the new law, they adopted 15 new bylaws or regulations, but in very bad way. So they gave just 20 days for the public debate for 15 completely new bylaws, and they failed actually again because they didn't want to continue this debate despite some voices from the media and the civil society community that is a huge job, and that people, citizens and other stakeholders need more time to go through these documents very carefully and give their feedback. But despite that, they adopted that on 7th of May, which was the final deadline according to the law. It failed to clearly foresee the criteria that should have been used when determining the plan for monitoring the behavior of the election campaign within the media, which was also one of the ODI recommendations, but they missed this opportunity. There has been a diminution of quality control in rule books, new conditions and criteria for issuing a license for the provision of the media services. Previously, for example, in the rule book, it was prescribed that a minimum of 20% of program dedicated to the documentary, scientific and educational, cultural and children program have to be there. this provision was dropped in the new rule book. And again, they missed the opportunity to, how to say, to have a better quality program on the TVs with national coverage. Also, the November's legislative update dedicated that members of the Council of Regulatory Bodies should continue their work for another 1 year before new members are elected. Due date, this process has yet to begin. Actually, in a couple of days, this deadline will be expire, and the National Assembly didn't initiate the procedure for the election of the new members of the RAM Council. So that is one more thing where we can see that actually there is no political will to change something on the media scene. When it comes to the transparency of media ownership and governments, the law on public information and media oblige all media outlets to disclose information about their publisher. Media outlets are also required to register their ownership structure and main editors with the media register of the Serbian Business Registry Agency. The same register also requires media outlets to report any changes in ownership editorial structures within the 15 days when this changes happened. Also, we have the registry within the regulatory body for electronic media, just for electronic media, but still we have struggling with the to see who is the real owner of the media. Also, what's happened as a result of adoption of the new laws in November, state ownership in media came back on scene because according to the new law on electronic media and law on public information and media, now the public companies partly owned by the state or totally owned by the states, which are dealing with the telecommunication, can be again the owners of the media, which can endanger pluralism of media content. So that is one of the setbacks when it comes to the new media laws. When it comes to the transparency of allocation of state advertising, we are just now in the public in the progress of public debate for the new law, not new law, but amendments on the law on advertising. But the draft of this law shows us that again, despite that in the media strategy, sorry, there is a measure which say that state advertising which are going to the media should be somehow regulated and be transparent, but the state or the ministry which is in charge for this law, we cannot see in the draft law that this topic is covered in any word. Actually, this law could somehow relativize the advertising of the alcohol and these sports games. So again, there is not anything which shows us that states actually want to implement the media strategy which was adopted in 2020. Still, we are late with the adoption of the new action plan for the media strategy. The previous one expired at the end of 2022. So we are now actually without the relevant action plan for implementation of the media strategy almost 2 years. We are part, NONSI is a part of the working group which worked on this action plan, and we as working group. We finished our work in March this year. The public debate on the action plan was in July, but still this document is not adopted. And also this new amendments on the law on advertising, why they are doing this, that is because also, as Blariana mentioned, this audiovisual directive, EU audiovisual directive, our laws, these audiovisual directives in Serbian laws, part of this is in the law on public electronic media, and the other part is in this law on advertising. But according to this draft, they didn't transpone this audiovisual directive even in this law. When it comes to the journalist protection in Serbia, we have a really good framework and good mechanisms, but on paper again. According to the Serbian criminal law, journalists are privileged when it comes to the protection. They are in the same group as president, as prosecutors, as judges, and as persons who are performing work of importance to public information. And if you threaten journalists, you can be faced with a sentence ranging from 6 months to 5 years. But still, the number of attacks and pressures on journalists are huge. According to our data, until the end of September, we had 54 verbal threats to journalists, 8 physical attacks, and 52 different kinds of pressures, which are not criminal deed, but still has a chilling effect on journalist work. According to the data from the prosecutor office, because we have this standing working group as a mechanism which should improve the safety of journalists, and part of this mechanism are prosecutor office, police office, and 6 journalist and media associations. According to their data, until in the first half of this year, because that is the data which we now have, 35 threats and attacks happened, are reported actually to the police and prosecution. 1 is finished with conviction, 2 are before the court, 26 are still in progress, and some of them finished with the decision of the prosecution office that there is no ground for further procedure. When it comes to the SLAPP lawsuit, it's important to say that here in Serbia now we have for the first time that a judge from the appellate court sued one investigative portal, the woman journalist and the editor-in-chief, Stevan Docinovic, that is KRIK, our very famous investigative media. And this judge seeking damages, jail sentence, and bans of practice of their work, which is really a huge problem for the Serbian media scene. Also, we have a couple of prosecutors which are suing media, for example, for something which is said in the TV show, which was live broadcasted, and these sentences why the media and journalists are sued is not because they said that, but it was said from the guest in studio. So the number of SLAPP lawsuits are also rising, and actually from May this year, from beginning of May, we had more than 10 of this kind of SLAPP lawsuits. So the picture is not bright, unfortunately. We are also, what is happening just now, 3 or 4 days ago, a set of judicial judicial laws are on the public debate. One of them is criminal code and also code on criminal procedure. We are still analyzing these documents, but according to some media reports, there is some very, very dangerous changes which we have to analyze and hopefully stop this before the adoption. So that's from me. That is the newest updates from Serbia.
Great, thank you very much.
Great,
thanks a lot, Tamara, for this very comprehensive description, actually, of the Serbian landscape. I will now see if there are questions from the audience, from the public, but in the meantime, maybe I just wanted to point out a very important issue that you, I think, underlined and that I took from your speech, is that policy and I mean law implementation really remains a key challenge and issue. And as Valeriana mentioned, our shadow reports also include some policy recommendations addressed to key stakeholders, decision makers, both at the Serbian and Albanian national level, but also the European Union level. And of course, these recommendations are quite detailed and they deal with specific issues on media freedom. But I think that the overarching, so to say, recommendation is to really also pay attention to law implementation, because if the accession process is very much about alignment and the harmonizations with European standards and norms, and we also have new norms, as we have mentioned them, that have been recently introduced, the anti-SLAPP directive, the European Media Freedom Act. Alignment is, of course, key, is, of course, a crucial part, but we do not have to forget the implementation phase, because having an aligned legal framework doesn't necessarily mean that the job is done and that standards are actually upheld and protected. I don't actually see any question here. I just wanted to ask all the guests if they wanted to add anything, if they have some final remarks that they wanted to act or that they wanted to say, or if they want to react to something that they heard. Otherwise, I will leave the floor to my colleague Massimo for some final remarks. But first, if I don't know, any of you has or wishes to react to something, please. I see that. Okay, Mrs. Merkel, you can go. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing this comprehensive, so to say, picture from both countries. Of course, you know, and Tamara knows, I know Serbia more than I know Albania. But overall, I think, and Serena, you have already mentioned, in a way, and also in the context of the accession process, it starts with strategic and legal frameworks, but then implementation is equally important, and this is also very, very important for us, and we follow this very closely. And in principle, we also expect, you know, that the legislative processes are done inclusively, so with involvement of stakeholders and media organizations. This was an issue that we have been, you know, prioritizing or, you know, highlighting also in our discussions with Serbian authorities, and I'm sure my colleagues who work on Albania, they do the same when it comes to Albania, and it is not just about, you know, ticking the box in terms of legislation, but it's also really to align as expected. And for instance, in the case of Serbia, we have seen last year that while, you know, overall, we have given certain praise to Serbia for the media laws as they were adopted, we have also clearly highlighted what the outstanding issues are and our expectations that these issues are addressed and that further amendments will be presented to these laws. and then of course also to implement them properly. And here, and Tamara has already mentioned, the regulatory body REM is also a key body in this context, and we are observing with concern that the appointments of the new council, as they were foreseen in the law, are delayed. I think the deadline is 4th of November for the council to be appointed. And this is clearly something that we also raise in our contacts with the authorities. And I think overall, I hope that you know, media organizations across the region are also really reassured that on the Commission side, media freedom and also, you know, pluralism and conditions in which journalists work are something that we are clearly prioritizing very much in our discussions with the authorities. And I was also happy to hear Bleriana saying that that you also see this new momentum in the accession process as a possibly new momentum for some concrete changes and progress in this area, or as an opportunity for the countries to push them also to really make tangible progress in these areas. So I really hope that this is also that all the countries in the region will really use this opportunity. Thank you.
Many thanks once again. Here again, if anyone else wants to say a few final words, otherwise I will leave the floor to my colleague Massimo Moratti.
Okay. Thank you, Serena. Thank you to everybody, to all the participants for this great meeting today. I mean, this was an opportunity to go for a deep dive into the accession process, to start unpacking it, and especially unpacking the rule of law reports that came out this year for the first time for the non-EU new member countries. And so that we can go into that and see what this exactly means. And I think we have highlighted a few critical aspects of that, you know, because we started unpacking it and we were able to show what works and what does not work. And we're also able to show somehow that it's not just a process of ticking boxes, as it came up a few times during the meeting today, but it's an issue of actually implementing standards and achieving concrete goals. It's curious because after reading the rule of law reports and reading the shadow reports, I mean, there is really a large overlap of contents and findings in these reports, you know, and with different language, but they are going and pointing exactly to the same direction, I would say, you know. It is also interesting that, you know, what I would like to highlight that we are talking about media freedom and freedom of expression today, but let's not forget the other parts of the rule of law reports, the independence of the judiciary and the struggle against corruption. And I would say there is a really, these are two aspects that are really close to media freedom and freedom of expression. I mean, we have spoken a lot about investigative journalism, and investigative journalism, this anti-corruption is a big part of the work that the investigative journalism is doing. But if, like we have in Albania or in Serbia, journalists are not afforded any protection, they don't have access to legal aid, they are exposed to violence, and there is nothing happening in the judiciary or in the police, then it's clear we see how these two sectors are really mutually undermining each other. You know, the weakness of the judiciary is automatically discourages journalists from undertaking investigative journalism, to open some sensitive issues, to go and look into the ownership of the media, for instance, you know. So that is what we are now facing, and what we see as a sort of like you know, chilling effect. You know, I mean, we have followed quite closely the Churuvia case in Serbia, but that is not the only one and should not be taken in isolation. Impunity for violence against journalists is a sort of like major effect that prevents the development of media freedom, and basically it shows a failure of the state to protect the freedom of expression of journalists. So this is a big chapter and a great challenge, and you know, And this is something where we would see that the states could really take steps immediately. And we don't see that, those steps being taken. So that's why we are, we are facing, besides the violence, we said, then we have smear campaigns in Albania, the poor working conditions. Now we have the amount of SLAPPs that are being lodged against journalists in Serbia and also in Albania when the issue will be framed. So one person will say, well, why should I become a journalist? These are the conditions, these are the dangers, these are the risks, and this is exactly, one scenario that we want to avoid, but we are not sure that all the authorities are committed to avoiding it and to enhance media freedom. So it's a great opportunity, as I said, to explore in depth these issues, to see what these challenges actually mean. But it's now the ball is in the court of the governments. I mean, we stated in the reports that one first step would be, of course, to start adopting EU law in this regard. And we are thinking about the SLAPPs, which is something that we see as a very urgent at the moment. But so that would be definitely a very welcome step. But we don't want this step to become another set of boxes to tick. We want to start seeing those boxes being filled with content. That's why, I mean, closing the implementation gap in this sense would be the clear step that we expect, and where we would see that the governments could really take action immediately, and that's where we expect a commitment from their side. So this would be my conclusion, like my summary from today's meeting. Thank you. I mean, it was a really pleasure to work on this project.
Thank you very much, Massimo, also for wrapping up and also concluding this kind of discussion, putting the media freedom in a broader rule of law context and perspective. So thanks again, also from my side, to all our guests, to all our speakers and partners. It was indeed a pleasure to work together on this project. We keep working, actually, we do not stop, and I really hope that this is just the beginning of a fruitful collaboration on these crucial issues, both for every democracy, so EU and non-EU, hopefully future EU. So thank you very much again for joining the discussion, and until the next time.